So we wanted to start out by telling you some of the ways that we're a little bit different from some of the things you've heard about so far. First of all, we're not a church plant. We're a resurrection in a different form after a very hard and bitter death.
We don't have a parish, we don't have a rector or a vestry or an offering plate.
We're a ministry of the diocese, and our context is multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-income, multinational, and multi-faith. And when I say multi-faith, that means that a lot of the people who come to Galilee Ministries are refugees because they have been tortured by Christians in their country, or because they are dealing with the remnants of colonialism, much of which was rooted in Anglican tradition. So keep that in mind as you hear us talk. So after St. Andrew's Episcopal Church closed, and there was bad press, and there was a lot of hurt all around, Bishop Ann Hodges-Koppel, our suffragan bishop, called a group of deacons together and asked the question, is this a going to Galilee opportunity? Because Bishop Curry said you're going to find Jesus in Galilee. And I don't know if it was intentional on her part or not, but she called deacons together. And we're the folks who stand in the back of the church and pull everybody else out. And in this particular situation, that was so apropos because we didn't have a congregation. There were a group of us pulling from 6 or 7 different congregations to do this work. And so we came together because, of course, when a bishop says something, deacons go like, oh yes, we'll do that, because we remember we work for you. And we started listening. And we listened to our neighbors. We listened to organizations in the area around St. Andrews. We listened to individuals. We had some of the folks that we pulled from our congregations were folks we knew would be adventurous for the Lord. And so one of them was a stealth listener. She snuck into community meetings, and she sat in the back row, and she listened to what people were saying and to what they were concerned about. And one of the things we were listening for was, had the church done good? And was the church missed? And we found out 2 things from that exercise. The first thing we found out was that absolutely the church was missed. And the part that was missed most by the community were the community services that they had hosted. And the part that was missed most about those community services was that you could access them and be welcome to them without having to be a member and without having to be saved. And that was really, really important to people. The other thing we learned was not such good news, and that was that the Episcopal Church just wasn't trusted anymore because they had closed the church. And when they closed the church, the services went away. And it wasn't going to matter, no matter how much good talk we did about what we were going to do, we had to do it. So we did.
So we learned to say yes. Anything that came our way, we have a habit of saying, okay, let's try that too. And we weren't really afraid of failure. So we invited in all of these nonprofits that had work in the neighborhood, the community college, Catholic Charities, our local food bank, some other folks, some smaller nonprofits that we learned about along the way who serve the refugee community, an on-site mental health professional who was trying to get her practice started, But in addition to those official partners in the building, we also invited in 2 Montagnard Vietnamese congregations who use the nave space. We invited in, we've had Burmese weddings, we've had a Hindu memorial service, we have the Bhutanese Community Association has their karate dojo at Galilee. If we can say yes, we've said yes. But I want to spend a minute telling you about some of the hard yeses. All of those were fun yeses. There were a few that were really hard, but we think they were important ones to share. It wasn't long after I got to Galilee, this conversation was already going on, that some of those nonprofits said, we're not really comfortable being called ministries. It just sounds religious. Could we come up with another name? So we said, well, we'll just call ourselves the Partners at Galilee Center. Yeah, we can do that. And the church will still call ourselves Galilee Ministries, but everybody else can call yourselves the Partners at Galilee Center. We can say yes to that. Very soon after that, they said, we're not really comfortable starting our meetings with prayer. Could we give that up? Could we give up prayer? Well, yeah. We'll just start with a moment of silence. We'll start with an inspirational quote, right? That's one. Yeah, we can say yes to that. Very soon after that. We really don't like that cross that's painted in the big hall where everybody meets. Could we find a more inclusive symbol? Ooh, we thought about that one, prayed about that one for a couple months. Yes. So we painted this beautiful tree of life where the cross was, and we said the cross has bloomed, the cross has blossomed. We can say yes to that. Then they said, we really don't like meeting with the church people. We don't, all those people who show up every month at our meeting with the collars, we don't know them. We don't really trust them. We can't be ourselves around them. Could the Partners at Galilee Center meet over here? And the church form its own little board over here and call it Galilee Ministries of East Charlotte? And Rebecca and Toni can just sort of liaison between the two groups? Now that one hurt, because the whole original model was a challenge for the church to work right alongside and collaborate with these other groups, right? We're the host of the building. Come on, for Pete's sakes. Can't we have this our way? And this one took a long time. I would bet 6 months. We prayed about this and thought about it. I likened it to the severing of Siamese twins, right? It was painful, it was big, but we said yes. And all along the way, that's what our practice has been, is to humble ourselves, to not exercise privilege. And we've questioned whether we've been giving up our identity or something integral to us being followers of Jesus Christ. Prayer, the cross, right? So I needed to share those with you, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Rebecca.
And I will say we do still have 2 crosses.
Yeah, we have crosses, just not the big cross.
And we still show up with our collars and our crosses. But what's happened as a result of this, and I think this is really important, is that it was sort of a coming of age. It was enabling everybody to be who they are, including us. And it made us realize that there is such a thing as Episcopal privilege. And we talk about how important it is to be aware of white privilege. And we didn't realize that we were so steeped in Episcopal privilege that we were unconsciously sending out signals that if you don't do it our way, somehow you haven't quite got it right. And here's a little quick story. We had our big grand opening in June of 2015 in late afternoon, and we had a huge buffet. And we had both bishops, and we had everybody from the community and all the people who were in classes. And it was the first day of Ramadan. Because it never occurred to us to check the calendar. But that was also the first time I met Jesus at Galilee. When I peeked around the corner after we'd had a little flurry of upset about this, and I looked, and there was an Episcopal priest and a Jewish ESL teacher and a Muslim mom packing up takeout. And that was, it was like a huge breakthrough moment. This is what we're about. And we also, because we had Buddhists in the building, we thought, this is great, we will do centering prayer. Because they like to do centering prayer. And nobody came. But what we found is that what people really wanted to do was prayer walks in the neighborhood. That the neighborhood was hungry to be prayed with. That the senior citizens in the senior homes behind, they were hungry to be prayed with. And they were hungry to pray with us. And when we went and walked, good things happened. We were changed, and they were changed.
Let's see, where are we? We just changed this at lunch, so bear with us. Here we go. So we've invited people to come in and make themselves at home at the center. And I've heard a lot of folks here talk about giving to the community and getting to know the community. But I think the thing that has been the biggest challenge for us is to not say, we are the hosts, come on in and be like us. But to just say, come on in and be yourself. Bring all your stuff with you, everything, and just come and be with us. And there was something about that separating out Galilee Ministries from the partners at Galilee Center that gave us permission to be ourselves, too. And so it really ended up being one of those things where you give yourself away and find yourself. Because the prayer walks that we've done in the neighborhood, this has allowed Episcopalians to get out of their box. Bishop Sam Rodman, our new bishop, he went with us one Saturday morning. He ended up praying with some women in a beauty parlor. He helped some lady carry her groceries into her apartment and put her groceries away before he prayed with her. I mean, Episcopalians don't usually do this kind of thing, right? Another thing that we have started is once a quarter we have a ladies' tea, and it sounds kind of cute, where these suburban, wealthy Episcopal women come and sit down at tea with refugee ladies. And it sounds really sweet till you hear what they're talking about, which started out with, what do American women carry in their purses? That's what started this whole thing. And has ended up with the last one being, what are the resources available for you if you are not safe in your own home and you need to leave because your husband hurts you? So it sounds really sweet until you hear how important it is to get these two groups of women together. It's a different set of resources that are coming together there. The last example I have is that every week we have a community lunch, and about 90 people right now gather for lunch. And it's our usual crowd. It's refugees, immigrants, disabled adults, senior adults, the homeless guys who sleep in the woods and also on the bench right outside the door, so that when I get there in the morning, I say, good morning, Henry, on my way in. All of this hodgepodge of people who gather at Galilee Center. But in addition to that group, the police officers from the precinct office next door come. Local construction workers have heard there's a good free meal down the street. They show up. Food needy people in the neighborhood, especially in the summer, children, come and eat lunch with us. But sometimes politicians show up. And sometimes rectors from our largest, most wealthy Episcopal churches show up. And they tell me that it is the most important hour of their week. And what we've learned is that most of us live in a really small box. We live with people who are a lot like us, but this is just choices we make. We worship with people who are a lot like us. We go to conferences with people who are a lot like us, right? We put our kids in schools. We socialize. It's really hard to get out of your box, even if you have this idea you want to. But at Galilee Center, it is hard to stay in your box. It is very hard to stay in your box.
It's very hard
Yes.
to stay in your box. So one of the things we realized, and this has to do with that welcoming everybody as they are, we had some folks who were leaving a citizenship class one day, and we were struggling because we did not know how to talk to them. They didn't speak enough English. And they were having to learn the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, which I know y'all know, right? But they couldn't get the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And the reason they couldn't get it is because that is not a value where they're from. And one of the volunteers went like, it's easy, you do a chant. It's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And pretty soon, they were all doing it, and they got it. And we realized right then that we might not know their language, and we might not know exactly how to provide all the services they need, but we know how to love these people. We know how to love, and we do. And people are now saying, in spite of themselves sometimes, that by golly, you can find the risen Lord at Galilee Center. Thank you.